Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business. Hey, it's Michael Zapersky, and today I'm very excited to have Mark Pierce joining us. Mark, welcome.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
So, Mark, for those who don't know you, just take a moment and share with us what you do.
Okay, Michael. Mark Pierce. I'm a former welder, never been to college. And I'm the owner, operator, and founder of a company called E5 Leadership and E5 Leadership Academy. For 35 years, I've been in the coaching, mentoring business, consulting, if you will. And it's been a great ride. I'm married, got 4 children. My oldest is 40 today. And my wife and I are childhood sweethearts. And I've been teaching, training, educating, and motivating people how to be successful in life through a platform of 5 pillars: spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, and financially. And I found this success through my own implementation in my own companies, which I've sold 2 of them since, and decided one day that I would teach people how to fish rather than giving them a fish. And that's really how I got into the consulting business. And it's a little bit about me and my background.
Yeah, I mean, you and I certainly share some commonalities in that path, though I've never welded anything in my life. Let's start really, I guess, kind of going back in time a little bit. You've been a consultant and a coach since the early 80s, I believe. And let's kind of look at how you got your first client. Do you remember who that was and what that looked like?
Yeah, actually, my first client ended up turning into one of my first mentors. And what it was is I was working for General Motors, and I got hired in to help them build and develop a very specific, unique manufacturing process because I had some manufacturing background being a welder. And I had met Art Pastuli, that was his name, through a relative of mine who thought that the 2 of us would do well together. And I'm a very, very young guy, but very ambitious. And I had just started my own business at the time, and I was looking for a client. Art presented this great project that he had and asked me if I could help him find the vendors to do it. And I said, absolutely. And that's really how my first business was born.
All right. And so you got that first client. What about the next? Like, what did you find? And I guess kind of especially in the early days, what was kind of the best way for you to get clients for your consulting business?
Honestly, I'm old school, man. I mean, 35 years ago, there was no internet. People didn't have email addresses, stuff like that. So it was all about influence. And I realized early on that leadership was influence. So I had to lead myself in a certain way and behave a certain way in order to be both appealing and have credibility because I was so young. So it was through that process of how I behaved and how I led that I influenced others. And that influence then led me to referrals. My first 25 years in business was mainly referrals. I never, to this day, have not advertised any time. So most of my business was word of mouth, that people had heard what I was doing, what I was able to do. And they contacted me in that very small sphere, started to grow and grow and grow over the years.
What you just mentioned there about, kind of leading by example, I think I've often heard this kind of being referred to, and I've talked a little bit about this idea of kind of like a mirror, right? You want to make sure that your actions are the type of actions that you want. So if you're going around and trying to haggle about prices all the time and push someone down to the bottom to get a lower price, well, that's probably the clients that you're also going to attract, right? So, but I'm really interested though in your approach to this, because I think a lot of people understand this, the idea of leading and how it's important and how to be professional and so on. But like specifically, what were you doing and what was your mindset at that time that then allowed you to really have people reach out to you and get more referrals because of that?
Well, I think what I can recall is that there's 3 major keys that were apparent to me, and I can't explain why or how, but they were. Number 1 is I needed to change my language skills because I came from the shop and I need to relate to high-level business people now, so I had to learn to speak their language. The second thing that I needed to do is I had to remain accountable at all times. I had to learn to live in a glass house, that there was no second chance a lot of times working with larger corporations. And I also knew the value of what I was doing. So I never compromised that value. Instead, I used back then it was a countercultural sales approach of selling high-end value. And I just did that through my raw experience, that I knew what I could save them. I knew what the projects were worth, and I knew what the value add was to them. And so I always made sure that I tied in a percentage of my value add to them as a performance incentive. So they might buy a project for $60,000, $80,000, $100,000, but I might have got a $400,000 payoff at the end because of performance.
How did you get there? How did you know to do that part? Because There's a lot more books and information available today for people to learn about different consulting fees and pricing models and so forth. But back then, it'd be a little bit harder to come by. So how did you get to that place?
Well, I had mentors, as I mentioned. Art Pistoli was one of my early mentors, and Art really taught me the art of negotiation and understanding your value. And the proposition of value was, what could you add to the situation? What was the situation or the market demand willing to pay? And what were you willing to work for? So oftentimes people are willing to work for so much less than what they're really worth, right? I mean, priceless, right? We're human beings. We're priceless. You can't put a price tag on who we are and what we do and our uniqueness. So he taught me that and instilled that confidence into me. That's really how I learned, was through his experience and then seeking out other people that have been successful in mentoring them.
Why do you think that people don't charge what they should charge in terms of they're really not exploring and putting forth the value that they're creating? What do you think is going on? What do you think is holding people back from your experience in really doing that when it comes to their fees and value?
I think the number one thing is fear. I think it's fear of either failure, fear of rejection, fear of loss, fear of exposure. Maybe I'm not worth what I think I am. And that's all self-image. So for you to have a proper self-image, sometimes you got to clean house quite a bit. So I've really, really made my career on personal development, professional development. And that's really what I teach now, is how to help people value themselves. I had to learn how to do that, right? I had to come up from welding and start talking big deals in front of General Motors. That was a huge, huge leap for me. I mean, I never even wore a tie before that day.
Right. What other kind of examples can you offer around being a leader? Because when people often hear the word leadership or leader, they think about someone in a larger organization, right, leading a team. But what you're really referring to, and I'm just a really big proponent of this, is leadership of self. So I'm interested just in maybe a few more examples that you can offer either back in the early days or even from today that you practice, that you believe if other consultants practice as well, they would get real benefit from.
Okay. Well, when I understood that leadership was influence and that influence was power, do anything you want to do, you had to have a game plan. So part of the game plan was being able to set your goals and what I call dreams. Goals and dreams. These are things that are at a higher purpose or a higher level than just making money. You had to know what your end game was. So you had to set down those goals and write them down. It's only about 2% of the population that ever writes down their real dreams and goals and sets a plan to that. Now, talking to consultants, they might all say, oh, yeah, we do all that. And I said, well, if you do all that and you're not getting where you want to go, then you're stagnant. If you're stagnant, your dream's not big enough. You got to get there and dream bigger. So that's one thing. You have to be able to dream and dream big and know that the responsibility that comes with accomplishing or achieving that dream is huge, right? It's going to make an impact. Well, when you start to understand the value of what that impact is going to be, that's when you start building confidence. So that would be one example. And I can give you a great example about a situation that I was in. I was in a meeting and I was called on off the cuff to start giving some quotations and some numbers and trying to cut this deal right there. And I said, you know what? I said, it wouldn't be proper and I wouldn't be giving it due diligence if I just shot off the cuff. I really need time to investigate, make sure that what we're doing is the right thing. In other words, I had to have their best interest at heart. And I want to make sure that the deliverable that I'm giving you, I can actually deliver it. I don't want to be one of these people that says I'm going to do something and then go back like the FedEx commercial and go, well, how the heck am I going to do that? So the accountability thing became huge, Michael, really, really huge. You better say what you mean and mean what you say. So those two things were really part of the journey in a big way for the conversion into leadership. So you had to lead yourself with accountability. You had to lead yourself with character. You had to lead yourself with morals. You had to lead yourself with a teachable spirit, for example. You had to understand what you didn't know and not be afraid to ask questions, right? Because if you don't know the answer, it's not a dumb question. And that there's so many people out there that are willing to share and sow seeds into all of us to help us achieve our dreams and goals, especially when it's a purpose or a cause that's greater than ourselves.
You know, one of the things, Mark, that you're talking about is, and the way I'm hearing it is, you need to slow down sometimes and really ensure that you have the right things lined up, you know, the actions, the steps you're taking to get to where you want to go to, whether that's the accountability or whether that's having an opportunity come your way and saying, well, this may not be the right opportunity, or before I just say yes to this opportunity or give a quick response to fees, maybe I need to slow things down a little bit and kind of really look at it, make sure there's good alignment and there's the right value being set. But someone who's at the earlier stages of their career or their consulting business might hear that and say, well, yeah, but I need to put not necessarily food on the table, but I need to make sure that I'm bringing revenue in. And Like, do they have that luxury? What would you say to someone who maybe feels they don't have the luxury of being able to just slow things down because they're so focused right now on just winning those first few clients?
Well, there's nothing wrong with winning the first few clients, but keep in mind when you sell short, you have to sell more. I'd rather do less and make more than do more and make less. So I made an early on decision that I'm not going after these small-minded contracts. I'm qualifying people before I get there. I'm making sure that the contract value is commensurate with what I want to make. So that was the first decision. And back then it was a six-figure sale, which extrapolate that today, what's that worth? It's worth a lot. These were all big numbers back then. So you have to first know your client, know what you're dealing with. But as far as putting foot on the table, that's great. But when you get a sense of urgency or you fail in a presentation to show confidence or you fail to show the value, people get that. They catch that right away. They'll discover that you're desperate. Desperation is not an attractive quality when people are buying into your credibility. I would just flat out recommend you don't ever do that. It's easier to smile and say, nah, I don't think it's going to work out for us and go find another one than it is to get involved in a contract that doesn't pay you enough. Nobody wins. You'll cut corners to get out of it.
Yeah, the interesting thing, right, about that as well is typically when someone knows inside that there's something not right about the situation, you end up saying yes to it. Those are the ones you always regret. Those are the ones that are always the pain in dealing with. And at the end of the day, you kind of hope that or wish that you wouldn't have said yes to it, even for the money.
Yeah, here's another point too. I only have so many hours on the planet. I've only got so much time. When you understand that, I can't afford to waste time, and neither can you. You have to maximize your time and your potential and your output, and that makes it worth X. So if you spend a lot of time making less than X in your consulting business or in the world that you're in, no matter what you are, whether top level CEO, professional, what you do, those wasted movements are gone forever. You can never get them back.
Mm-hmm. You talked also here about qualification, right? And what I've sometimes referred to as ideal client selection. This is so important, yet many people, even those who are running quite successful businesses, don't practice it to the degree that they could. And so I'd be interested in hearing your approach today to qualifying clients, to ensuring that you're saying yes only to the right people and allowing yourself to then to say no to all the wrong ones.
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
Okay, that's great. And today has changed a lot, right? Over 35 years. Hopefully I've learned and I've grown and I'm not the same person I was.
Yeah, just give us the best practices that are really working for you.
Yeah, the thing today that I do is when I talk to people, I give them a qualifying question. And for my question, it's this. Now, my market that I'm working with is predominantly 45 to 55-year-old. They're all top level, top 2% performers. They're CEOs, presidents, entrepreneurs, business owners, just so you have a view or a picture of who I'm talking to, are top professionals. So one of the number one questions I give them is, doing what you're doing as good as you do it day in and day out, are you getting everything you want, need, and desire out of life? If your answer is yes, man, God bless you. Good luck. If your answer is no, then I think I can help you. Maybe we should talk a little. My second question is this. I bring up faith because faith is very important to me. I have a deep faith life. So I'll talk to them about their lives from a spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, and financial perspective. And I'll start asking them some questions about that. And if they hiccup or they get uncomfortable or they're just not willing to engage in that kind of conversation, I know I got a project. And projects take a lot of time. So I'll back up and go the other way. I'm really trying to decipher with those 5 areas. how far along in development are they? Because I don't want a startup. I want somebody that's having a real challenge moving through the four levels, what I call the four levels of life. We all start in survival. We go through survival, stability, success, and then into significance. Well, most people get stuck at success. So I'm looking for highly successful people that want to move to significance and don't know how to do that. So my qualifying questions make sure that they're in the right vein that I need them to be. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it certainly does. I mean, I think the point there that is worth a little bit more exploration as well is based on some of those questions, you're definitely going to be, I would imagine, you're going to find that some people, and maybe you're attracting the right people right from the start, but some people are going to self-select themselves out of the picture, right? Like you're going to know pretty quickly, like this is not the right fit for me. And I think that's an interesting mindset to have because a lot of people would say, well, yeah, but I'm losing all these opportunities. Have you found that by having really kind of clear criteria or questions that polarize to a degree, that in fact your business has grown as a result?
Undoubtedly, Michael. It's polarizing. And the reason it's polarizing is I want to sift through the wheat in the chaff. I want to do this quickly.
And how have you taken those learnings and that knowledge of who your ideal client is and who it is not, and used it in I know you said you don't do a lot of marketing, but used in your messaging or in your business or in your communications? Can you maybe share some examples of what you've done to ensure? Yeah.
In my current market group, they basically have 5 pain points. And I've identified the pain points and I speak to them from the pain point. And let me just give you an example of a couple of them. They're not unique to my client group. I think most consultants and most coaches, mentors, they have the same pain points with their clients. But it's time, no money, poor relationships, need to make more income, and have no growth strategy or plan. Those are the 5 things that are holding people back. And so I'll address them when I'm talking to them. If time and money were no object to you, what would you do with your life? There's a great lead-in question. Another one would be, hey, how would an extra $100,000 a month change your life? More importantly, how would it change your wife or your spouse's life? And I'm getting a feel for their character. I'm getting a feel for their development and what level they're at. Are they truly at the success level, ready to go to significance or wanting to? Or are they maybe posers?
Yeah, those are really great examples. As your business has grown and you become more successful as well, what have you done? What changes have you made in your own systems, Mark, or your team or your tools? Like, what have you really used to help you to manage the growth?
Yeah, that's a really great question because there's been often times in my life where I've said yes too many times. And I've had so much growth and so much expansion that you really can't do the customer. We become all my friends. You can't do them justice. So you have to have a means and a measurement, in my opinion, in order to keep track of your time. You have to have a great time management system. And everybody sells one, and Franklin Covey, practically invented it, a time planner back in my day. We actually had that book. But what I've done is I created a priority system. If this doesn't serve my purpose, these are 2 affirmations that I use. If this doesn't move me closer to my dreams and goals over the next 2 to 5 years, I'm not going to give it energy. So that's an overarching purpose. The other one is, if this doesn't affect my life in a positive way over the next 2 to 5 years, I'm not going to give it energy. And those 2 affirmations have really led me to making good quality decisions to control the growth because I never was in trouble for growth, if that makes sense to you. I mean, I might be speaking a foreign language, but when you have a good product and a good deliverable and you're accountable and you say what you mean and mean what you say, people want to be around you. You're very attractive. They want to work with you because they know you know something or they might want to be a little bit like you. So those qualities are very important. The other thing I do is I use third-party verification. I have 6 mentors in my life, people that I really love and love me and trust them, and I'm not afraid to bounce things off of them. Hey, what do you think? I got this opportunity. I'm not sure. Maybe you could help me out. So I'm seeking advice. I'm not the armchair quarterback. I'm not making all the decisions myself. I like to surround myself with a team of people who love and care about me so that they can help me in those decisions.
That's really, tell me more about that, because I've observed that some people feel like they need to know everything themselves, even if they're working with maybe a coach at times, but they have this mindset where like they're really locking into, no, I should be an expert. I should know how to figure this out myself. So at what stage, I know you've had mentors and coaches yourself from the early days, but at what stage did you figure out or make the decision that you really want to create this kind of group of advisors around you?
Well, it was pretty early in my life, actually, Michael, because being a welder and never been to college, I always felt the deficit. Like maybe I wasn't as far ahead as everybody else. I didn't have the academia behind me. I just had raw guts and talent and experience. It wasn't refined. So because of that, I realized early on that I had to humble myself. Humility, okay, this virtue of humility was so important. I had to humble myself to understand that I had to learn what I don't know. And if I want to grow and I want to control that growth and bring the right growth, I have to know what I don't know so I can understand what I really want. And that takes a third set of eyes. That takes another perspective higher than the level of the trenches that I was working in. So that was key, the key awareness and discovery for my developmental process is that I needed that. In addition to that, intentionality rather than reaction. We hear today proactive and reactive. Most people are reactive all the way. And I had to put intentionality into my living in all areas of my life so that I could become proactive. In other words, I was in control of the situation, right? I'm kind of kidding myself because I'm really not. But I felt like I was controlling the situation by being intentional rather than just taking whatever the winds of fate blew to me.
Yeah, I think those are really good points. And you also talked about these affirmations that you use to guide your decision-making process or to make decisions just around opportunities that come your way. Before we wind down here, I'd love to explore a little bit more about what your routine looks like kind of on a daily basis. Every day might be different, but generally, how do you manage your time? Do you structure in a certain way? Do you have specific habits that really help you to stay focused and productive?
Yeah, another great question. And you know what? That's a great question to lead to talk to people as a qualifier. It's a great thing when you're meeting somebody to say, hey, I'm just curious. What do you do for time management? How do you maximize your day? I'm always looking for ways to improve myself. What process do you use? That's a great way to engage people.
Well, you're welcome to use it, Mark. Yeah.
Here's mine. I make sure that no matter what time I have to get started in a day, that I get up at least an hour to an hour and a half early. And I don't do it to exercise my body. I do it to exercise my mind. So the very first thing I do is I set my culture of thought right. I set my spiritual life right. I set my plans for the day right. I do all the things I need to do as far as affirmations and readings, things like that first thing in the morning. Now, I get up an hour and a half early to do that because a lot of that for me is just like contemplative time. The actual hard work is only about 20 minutes. But it's the contemplation and setting my mind right for the day's engagement, what I have to do. Now, for me, my zone is 10 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe 4 p.m. So all my meetings are going to happen during that time. If you go to schedule on my coaching platform right now, that's the only times I have available. Because I know that's when I'm at my peak, and I need to be at my peak in order to give the best to my clients, give the best to my family, give the best to my people. And I also know this about myself, it's know thyself, right? That awareness thing and discovery, self-awareness. I know that I'm not really good to anyone unless I'm fully capable physically and emotionally. So I'm making sure that I'm doing something every day to satisfy my physical and my emotional need. And being a student of the 5 love languages from Gary Chapman, I don't know if you've ever heard of that or not, but being a student of emotional dialects, I teach that as part of my process. I make sure, man, that I'm getting my hugs every day or my words of affirmation so that I stay in balance. Balance is so, so important. By starting your day off right, you can almost guarantee that your balance points are going to be better. And I don't let anything jerk me out of shape in the morning to knock me off my routine, no matter where I am. It's every day. I don't miss a day. I don't miss it for my birthday. I don't miss it for Christmas. I don't miss it. I stay on that routine every single day. So that's what I do in the morning. And then I go through my day. And at the end of the day, I also have an examine that I run through to figure out what was my day's events. What did I do? What did I do that I could have done better? But I also evaluate from my spiritual wellness. Was there things that I did in error? Or maybe I hurt somebody, or I was short, or maybe I was abrasive or aggressive. And I always want to make sure that I get back to those people and let them know that, it was not intentional. Those are the things that I do.
What time do you do that examination at the end of each day?
At the end of each day, it's probably somewhere, for me, the day's over, I turn my cell phone on at 9 a.m. and it goes off at 7 p.m. So probably sometime after 7. I don't watch any TV whatsoever. I have no inputs into my life that don't belong there. I don't read the paper. I don't listen to the radio. I keep totally focused on the values that I believe in and things that I need to do. So that's another part of my process. So at 8 o'clock at night, by 8 o'clock, I'm doing that examination. And even if I'm at home or I'm at the lake or I'm fishing or golfing or doing anything like that, I always take that time. It's like autopilot now because I've been doing it for decades, where I just evaluate my day and I just appreciate it, have a heart and attitude of gratitude. I want no grudges. I want nothing heavy on my mind before I go to bed. I want to have a solid night's sleep.
Really, it's simplicity in everything that you're sharing, but the power comes from that simplicity. And I think there's lessons to be learned by all of us in finding and identifying simple things that we can do that will have a profound impact, not only on our lives personally, but also on our businesses. Yeah, Mark, I want to thank you for joining us here today and sharing a bit of your story and journey and best practices. I want to make sure also that people have a place that they can go to learn more about you and your work. So tell us where that would be.
Okay, I'd like to add one more thing, if I may, Michael. Sorry about that. Another thing that I make sure that I do every day, if I'm going to be in front of people or I'm going to be presenting or I'm going to be talking or working or making phone calls or prospecting, whatever it is I'm going to do, I have a 10-to-1 rule. I make sure that I'm prepared 10 times greater than what I have to deliver. So, for example, in this call today, we're doing 30, 40 minutes. I got over 300 minutes of preparation. I actually read a book about Created for Greatness and the power of magnanimity so that I would have a good focus for today's call, that I could add value to you, to your people, and just be a blessing to them. And the best way to get a hold of me would be at e5leader.com, and you can reach me at info@e5leader.com. There's a schedule up there, a bunch of blogs, and free stuff, and a bunch of stuff on social media as well, but it's all at e5leader.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. We'll have all of that up in the show notes linked up so that you can access that easily if you're on the road or at the gym. I'm often at the gym when I listen to podcasts. So we'll make sure that it's convenient for you to learn more about Mark's work. And again, Mark, thank you so much for coming on and being with us here today.
Hey, you bet, Michael. I'm so glad to be with a winner and somebody that's doing great work out there in a significant way. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.